Hello, my name is Brian David, and we're going to be reviewing Erik Erikson's theory of psychosocial development. This being a new topic for myself, I found it very interesting as far as evaluating kind of the influences socially that we experience from pretty much birth until all the way up until we die. I thought it was really interesting to kind of reflect on my own life experiences and definitely made me think about my own students and possible experiences that they've encountered at such a young age. The lesson objectives that we are going to cover are we're going to identify the three aspects of identity according to Erik Erikson. We're going to analyze the 8 stages of psychosocial development and apply them to kind of our own student age range. Just want you to kind of think about what you encounter every day on a daily basis and maybe focus on that range. Also, we're going to reflect on the challenges in our students' stage of psychosocial development. And lastly, we're going to evaluate the validity of Erikson's theory. The essential question is, how can understanding Erikson's psychosocial development theory help you understand your students' behavior in the classroom? Okay, is this going to be beneficial information? A little background on Erik Erikson. He was born in 1902, passed away in 1994. He was a German-born American psychoanalyst, heavily influenced by Sigmund Freud, which we'll touch on a little bit later. He explored three main aspects of identity. The ego identity, which really dealt with kind of self-identity, personal identity, the personal idiosyncrasies that distinguish a person from another, and the social cultural identity, which is basically the collection of social roles a person might play throughout their life. His psychosocial theory dealt with the impact of external factors, basically parents and society. How does that affect us and our personality development from the stage of birth all the way until death? And his claim, his theory is that failure to complete each stage effectively would probably result in problems later down the road. Okay, these eight stages span from birth to death, and they're split into general age ranges, which we're going to kind of break down. The 8 stages before you starts with number 1, which is infant or infancy, and we go all the way down to level 8, stage 8, which is that older adult, all the way until our kind of death, which would be that wisdom, integrity versus despair, life reflection stage. Okay, so we're going to break these down a little bit. First stage, which is infancy, and we're dealing with pretty much birth to about 18 months old. It's where we're kind of affected with that basic trust versus mistrust. It's during this first or second year that the major emphasis is on the mother and father's nurturing ability and care for a child, especially in terms of visual contact and touch. Okay, it's a very important part. The child will develop optimism, trust, confidence, security if properly cared for. Okay, but what about the children who don't experience it? General mistrust to the world, insecurities, worthlessness, are all claims that Erikson makes that could possibly resurface at a later age. Even this happening at such a young time. Second stage, toddler and early childhood years. We're looking at 18 months to 3 years old. This is where we're dealing with kind of the autonomy versus shame. This occurs between 18 months and 3 years. At this point, the child has opportunity to build self-esteem and autonomy as he or she learns new skills and right from wrong. The well-cared-for child is sure of himself, carrying himself or herself with pride rather than shame. And it's during this time, or the terrible twos that us parents know about, defiance, temper tantrum, stubbornness can also appear. This is really a stage where vulnerability kind of starts to seep through. Feelings of shame, low self-esteem, definitely during an inability to learn certain skills. Preschooler stage, or stage 3, and we're looking at 3 to 5 years. Initiative versus guilt. Okay, that's purpose, the feeling of purpose. In this period, we experience a desire to copy the adults. Okay, modeling, imitation is very important. We take initiative in creating play situations. Toy phones, miniature cars. I really like G.I. Joes. We play out roles. That question why really comes into play. Exploring the world, wondering things. Okay, and this is where we see a little connection with Freud. He downplays biological kind of sexuality in favor of psychosocial features, but this is the stage where that edible struggle would have kind of bled through, looking at Freud's theories. If we're frustrated over natural desires and goals, we may easily experience guilt. Okay, another way to kind of enter that stage. At this point, the most significant relationship is with the stage 4. We're looking at school-age child, 6 to 12 years old. Industry versus inferiority. It's this stage it's often called latency. We're capable of learning, creating, accomplishing numerous new skills, knowledge, thus developing a sense of industry. This is also a very social stage of development, and if we experience unresolved feelings of inadequacy among our peers, we can have serious problems in terms of competence and self-esteem. As the world expands, our most significant relationship is with the school and neighborhood. Parents, rather they're still very important, they're no longer that complete authority. Stage, which is adolescence. 12 to 18 years, this is kind of my area with my students, and I couldn't agree more. Kind of dealing with this identity versus role confusion, or the fidelity. Development depends on what is done to a person up until this stage, but it's at this point that development now depends primarily on that person or on that student. An adolescent must struggle to discover and find his or her own identity, also while negotiating and struggling with social interactions, or what we see in definitely secondary is the fitting in, developing a sense of morality and right from wrong. At this point, we also see a lot of people, they attempt to delay the entrance to adulthood and withdraw from responsibilities. This is known as moratorium. Those unsuccessful with this stage tend to experience role confusion and upheaval. Adolescents begin to develop a strong affiliation and devotion to ideals, causes, and friends. Age 6, which is the young adult, 18 to 35. This is where intimacy, solidarity versus isolation kind of enter. At this stage, people tend to seek companions. They seek love. Some also begin to do the settle down process, start families, complete college. Significant relationships at this stage are, with marital partners or friends. We're moving forward, trying to create that kind of family unit. Brings us to the middle-aged adult, 35 to 55 or about 65 years old. This is where kind of Erickson coins a term, generativity. He says generativity versus self-absorption or stagnation. This is where kind of this stage, career and work are the most important things, along with family. Middle adulthood is also kind of when people can take on a greater responsibility and control. At this stage, working to establish stability, in Erickson's idea of generativity, which is attempting to produce something that makes a difference to society, inactivity and meaninglessness are common fears during the stage. It's that kind of reflection, and what I'm doing making a difference. For example, children leave the household, careers can change, so on. Some may struggle with finding purpose. Significant relationships are definitely those within the family, the importance of the workplace, local church, other communities. Brings us to the last stage, stage 8, which is late adult life. That would be that 55 or 65 to death. This is where integrity versus despair comes into play. Erickson believed that much of life is preparing for the middle adulthood stage, and the last stage involves much reflection. As older adults, some can look back with a feeling of integrity, that is contentment, what they did was meaningful. On the other hand, though, we have a lot of individuals who look back at their experiences and ask themselves, what was the point of my life, or was it worth it? They may fear death as they struggle to find that purpose. Basically, Erickson breaks it down with his belief that each stage is significant. He believed that a stage not successfully completed may reappear as a problem in the future. And it's something that, I ask you to kind of think about your students. And, we like to have as much knowledge or interaction with their, parents or guardians as we can. But we need to ask ourselves, are they effectively completing each stage? And are any of these problems reappearing or reoccurring in our classroom? I'm going to also post this in the forum, just a couple questions that I hope that, a few of you that view this might want to tackle. First one being, how can we use this theory to better understand ourselves, for one, but more so our students, and the insight into the social interactions and the impact on who they are as learners and as just community members. And the second question, with regards to the social learning theory, do you believe a person's success in accomplishing these stages relies on who they surround themselves with? And then obviously, when you're too young to make that decision, who surrounds them, whether it's family members, daycare, babysitters. And last thing, and this will also be in the forum, just wanted to share it with you, is the 3-2-1 strategy. Just wanted you guys to take a minute to maybe share with me a couple things that you learned. We're going to look at 3 things you learned, 2 questions you still have. They could be interpretive questions. And last, one memorable piece of information. It's kind of that one thing you won't forget. And I hope you picked up a little something from the presentation. I definitely did. Was something that I was not familiar with and really enjoyed kind of thinking about it. And I hope to hear from you all soon. Thanks a lot.